We are very grateful to have an opportunity to speak with you today, and look forward to talking a bit about sort of practical implications regarding the use of MT in production. And I've invited some panelists to help us speak about that today, who are from various parts of the community in the language service and technology sector. I will start with a few remarks, and then I will hand off to them, and then I would very much encourage those of you in the audience to help us discuss this and ask some questions. So this will be a chance to interact a bit more. A quick introduction of the panelists. Kim Harris is Managing Director of text&form right here in Berlin. She's also on the GALA Board of Directors, is our EU-EC liaison and program lead for our CRISP program, which I'll explain in a moment. Serge Gladkoff is from Logrus, the president of Logrus in Russia and the United States, and is our much called upon program lead for our CRISP initiative in GALA as well. And Stefan Gentz is managing director of Tracom in Bonn. They're going to speak in more detail about their practical experiences. I'm the CEO of GALA and have been in the translation and localization business for 30 years. And I think Jaap van der Meer and I are always comparing notes about who was in the business longer, and I think he beat me by about 2 months. But anyway, quick note about our organization. We are a leading language service and technology trade association. The members of our organization are companies that provide services and technology, as well as clients and research institutions. So we try to cover what we call the whole language enterprise worldwide in over 60 countries now. Our CRISP program is called the Collaborative Research, Innovation, and Standards Program, and this is a platform we're developing to be inclusive for voluntary cooperation among stakeholders in the industry to bring together research and practical applications and to create solutions that will help us advance the industry and create some innovation. And that we may talk about some of those things as we proceed here today. Let me give you just a couple of points about a survey we recently gave to our broader community, not just GALA members, but members of our CRISP initiative as well. And our panelists may speak to some of these points, these additional points, as they proceed also. We had 1,200 1,200 in the survey that we asked to respond. We had 108 responses. And you can see that the breakdown of the company size was interesting in that we had some very large companies, or what for us is very large companies in the industry, 27% of over 200 employees, and quite a number of smaller enterprises under $4 million US. So quite representative of the industry itself. 70% of those were in the language service business in some way, and 17% on the client side. Now, of those using MT in production, and this was specifically about using MT in their actual production work, not just research, but applied work, 84% of those respondents have used MT, and 75% of them still are. So clearly there's a percentage that is no longer. Why did they stop? Well, first of all, most of them stopped in the last year, and a number of them, 26%, did so a few years ago. The top 3 reasons for stopping: low quality. What does that mean exactly? Would require more research, of course. Number 2 is finding capable systems or training data. And number 3, not having the needed language pairs available. The types of MT that are in use: majority used SMT, 48%, almost half used a hybrid of some kind, and 26% are using rule-based. In terms of training for the data for the MT, about half use their own data for training. A small percentage purchased external training data, and interestingly, 11% didn't train their systems at all. And about 40% removed unacceptable output, or what they consider unacceptable output, from the corpus before post-editing. The majority did not. And about 63% use an API to integrate MT into their production. The main reasons for not doing so on the part of the others was that their use of MT was infrequent or not frequent enough, and that there was no API available as far as they knew. In terms of the best content for MT, according to these respondents, not surprisingly, information technology is the best content, most suitable for MT, seconded by automotive. The worst content was marketing, followed by legal, in their view. And the top 3 types of data that they considered most difficult for MT were complex verb forms, long sentences, and colloquialisms. And finally, on their wish list for what they wish MT would have going forward, the #1 answer was a mechanism for self-training or for feeding back their post-editing information back into the training data. So that's a quick overview of the survey that we conducted. Now I'd like to hand off to the panelists, and we'll start with Stefan. I've asked them to focus on some key topics so that we try not to repeat ourselves, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. But Stefan, why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah, well, when we discussed about this, why the results are like that, for example, that I think 80% said that they are not satisfied with quality, we were trying to find out why are the people not satisfied with the quality. And when I talked to LSPs, I noticed that there are 2 reasons for that. And the main reason is probably that they are not educated enough about machine translation. And what we don't see in the survey is what kind of machine translation systems they are actually using. And before our discussion here, I called a few LSPs and asked them, hey, you're working with machine translation and you recently told me that you're not satisfied with it. What is the reason for that? And what system are you using? And it figured out that many of them are actually using Microsoft Bing or Google Translate as a machine translation system. Because it's out of the box shipped with, for example, as their Trados Studio, and you can easily add it as a machine translation service to Trados Studio with just a few clicks. So, of course, the results of Google Translate or Microsoft Translator are not that good as a trained machine translation system. And I was asking them, why are you not using a machine translation system that you are able to train on your own domain, on the domain of your customer, on your specific type of document and content? And the reason they gave me was, or the answers they gave me was, well, we don't really know which systems exist and how to integrate them into our daily tools like Trados Studio or MemoQ or whatever. And this is, I think, where the tech community of machine translation service providers needs to do some homework to make it more clear for the LSPs how to integrate their machine translation system, and does it really fit into their daily tools, into the tools they use for their work, actually. And for many, it seems that it is a very complicated process where they need to hire external specialists, and it's not easy to integrate into their daily work life. So this is one of the major key points, I think, where machine translation service providers have to do some homework, make clear how to integrate it and how easy it could be to integrate. And the second biggest point is make a business case out of it. Make it clear what machine translation systems can really, where's the business case for a typical LSP? I had a discussion with an LSP and he said, well, I have a big TM with 100,000 units, and my client, he has a large volume to translate, so it might be interesting for me. But when I look at my analyzers that I get from my CAT tool, it shows me that I can recycle 80–90%. So for the rest of the rest 10%, I don't need a machine translation system because the investment is quite high, and the return on investment is not very clear. So making it more clear how a business case actually could look like, this is, I think, the second biggest issue that machine translation service providers have to offer to the market. So it's about communication and educating the market. Maybe the GALA can help you with that because they have the knowledge how to communicate these things.
Thank you. Want to go ahead, Ken?
One of the biggest and most interesting aspects of this survey for me was the quality aspect, obviously, because especially with the Qt Launchpad project that GALA is also involved in and the work we're doing in quality, it was confirmation of what we already thought was happening anyway, and that people just did not feel that the quality of machine translation was sufficient enough or good enough to be able to actually want to continue working with machine translation. One correlation I found very interesting was, however, and this is just also confirmation of what Stefan just said, was the use of free translation systems. And so they were complaining, 80% said that the quality was either neutral or bad, but 65% said the cost was good. So there's obviously some misalign there, and we should probably be asking the question which system people are using. In terms of quality, this is the main reason why people stopped using machine translation, and I think that both communities, industry and research, need to work together a little more closely to find out where the quality can be improved. And this is, again, part of the Qt Launchpad project that we're working on with the other partners in the project. So GALA is actually participating in that as part of the industry. It's very, very important because a blue score means nothing to a translator and doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the actual translation quality that can be used by a translator. The second part of quality was quality estimation, which was the second most important point and on the wish list, that before post-editing, we have the ability to be able to automatically discard machine translations that are not usable. And I think if we can do a better job of that as well, that will also make machine translation more accessible to our business, and the machine translation industry will have a lot more buy-in from LSPs to use the system, because then you don't have translators complaining about the really bad quality of the translation.
Do you mean that the system should be able to drop low-quality translation units coming from the machine translation system?
This is also part of the Qt Launchpad project that we're working on at the moment. We have various aspects, the quality metrics that we're working on. We're doing error annotation, and we're also doing quality estimation, and they all tie in together in order to be able to establish when certain parts of a text or segments are just too bad, and not only based on the blue score, but based on the actual translation and parts of the quality metrics that Arl is working on. Yeah.
Okay, and we'll go over to Serge now.
Thank you. We are, again, in the business for 20 years, and for 15 years, we're looking into various automation ways, including, of course, machine translation, and we're constantly evaluating engines. And the issue of actual implementation, again, many years ago, when I tried to contract a guy who was doing the Moses implementation for Yandex search engine, I asked him to help us. I said, could you help us to go over and install Moses in our premises? That was quite long ago when Moses only started. His answer was very interesting. He said that, listen, I can do this for you once, but you must realize that doing technology and doing machine translation in particular is just like sports. It's like going to the gym. You have to do it every day. So that's what we've been trying to do. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. It requires a lot of self-discipline. I'm not talking about the gym, I'm talking about the machine translation and technology implementation. So I'm looking at the notes that have been sent to me by our experts, and of course there is a lot of detail into the MT deployment, actually. And anyone who is planning the deployment should answer a whole lot of questions before actually doing the actual implementation, such as, for example, well, users must, of course, know their own process. And for example, quite a good question for anyone who is planning to deploy MTs would be, can you answer the question, how many licenses you actually need to deploy the MT engine? That's not a simple answer, because you have to actually do a very well-defined process and find out how many people actually need that. And for that, including the freelancers, including the editors, so that requires a lot of insight in your own technical translation process. Or what is the volume that you need to translate on a daily basis, day by day? And does this particular engine or workflow solution that has any limitation on that? Also, you need to answer questions about the strategy, because you have to know your strategy right from the beginning. For example, you need to know the answer about the quality. What is your quality, target quality level that you need? Also, do you actually have the compatible MT engine, MT solutions, and do you have the adequate corpus for the training? Does these solutions engine support your required language pairs? And are you actually ready for post-editing of these volumes? Because post-editors are scarce to find. So all those technical questions, and now when you answer those strategical and process questions, the technical question will come to mind, such as, for example, your workflow would actually needs to be able to integrating those particular solutions, and for that you probably will require the programmers and also the solution architects and a whole lot of other specialists. So I just you have to take some equipment to the gym, right? So the technical details and also face and hit a lot of real life situations, such as, for example, every MT developer is doing his own stuff, and deploying a particular MT solution means that you are hitting a whole lot of corners, sharp edges in those particular implementations, like such as, for example, some of the very famous MT engines of very big companies do not actually support any XLeaf data handling, and you will need to clean the data into XLeaf, so you just feed the data into that engine. And unfortunately, that also requires quite a lot of technical people, resources, and even the largest MT solutions do have a lot of technical problems which you face and hit when you're actually trying to deploy. And I'm not naming anyone here. Well, the functionality which is actually required for deployment is absent. You will need to ask them to implement this and to do this and that. And the question remains how quickly they will be able to implement that for actual deployments. The first question you will need to ask them, do you support the glossaries, in fact? Because many say that, oh, we do support, but in reality it's not so. So taking into account all those details is the last mile problem, which that problem is hitting any real life deployment. That's why it is important for the community of LSPs and actual language professionals to work together on identifying those issues and doing research collectively to identify them, list them, and find the ways to work around and actually to do that stuff so the last mile is closed. And that is one of the things that CRISP program is trying to do. And the CRISP is the Collaborative Research, Innovation and Standards Program, which we are trying to implement in GALA. So it's a collective research to overcome this last mile thing is really something that we need to do to bring those technologies from the labs to actual you know, working desk where people are actually typing this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, all three of you. So we've identified a few things. We've identified a bit of a disconnect between maybe the user community and the community that creates the tools and develops the tools. We've identified the need for business case, some kind of business case, concrete business case that the industry side needs in order to implement. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions around that, but let me ask you a question, and then hopefully, if those of you in the audience have some questions, please raise your hand after this, and we'll try to call on you. What is the, in your view, who would like to answer this? What is the trigger for implementing MT? Is it financial? Is it a client request? Is it simply because everybody else is doing it, or is there, you know, is there something you can say to those different points? Whoever would like to go first.
Yeah, that was an additional question that I posed to many LSPs during the last year, and in most cases, this was very interesting for me to hear. It was not client-driven. Because in most cases, it was the intrinsic motivation from the LSP to implement machine translation to be able to provide translations faster and cheaper, and so that the margin becomes bigger again. But when it comes to implementation and when it comes to actually translating content, and we all know that corporate clients do not only produce perfect content, they also produce a lot of crap. And this crap is even more difficult to translate for machine translation systems, where it again comes to this 80% who say, we're not satisfied with quality. But maybe regarding the business case, one story might be also the guy who was talking about, who said, I have this big TM and I don't need a machine translation for the small amount that has to be retranslated every year. And I said, why do you only translate this content for him that you have always translated for him? Start thinking about using machine translation for the rest of the content that this company produces. So the content you probably get for translation is maybe 10% of the content the corporation is producing. Think about the rest of the 90%. So machine translation might be a business case for this rest of the 90% of the content a company is producing. And this might also be an additional business case for LSPs.
For us, using MT is a differentiator more than anything else, especially when you see that 64% said that the cost of MT is the reason why they use it, meaning it's free. We don't use free systems. We actually want to use our own systems. And it does make a difference, I think, and it differentiates us not only from others who don't use MT, but also others who do and don't use it properly. That's the first reason. The second reason has a lot to do with our business as it is, and we translate a lot of things from German into other languages, and German is just not a language that is spoken by a lot of Asians, for example, and so they use machine translation themselves and use English as a pivot language, which is what we are doing now. So we have full control over that. This is a very, very important aspect of our business. And in fact, it is not client-driven. We've been driving our clients to this now, too. So, and they're very, very happy about that.
Yeah, that's my observation as well.
Serge, did you want to make a comment, or shall we go to the audience?
Well, no, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, does anyone out there have? I see a hand immediately went up. I'll try to bring the microphone to you so everyone can hear properly. Oh, you have one. Oh, good. Thank you. Please just state your name and introduce yourself real quick, please.
My name is Gudrun Magnusdotter from Esteem. Once upon a time, I would have called our company a machine translation software company. But since 2007, I was wise enough to kill it with that part of the operation, because I saw no future for a business case in machine translation. I still don't. The problem is that free tools are available, and I think you should deploy them. But can I just ask a question, just for the fun of it? Is there anybody in the audience that actually represents a company that is selling machine translation today? One person, hooray for you. 2, 3, 4, oh wow, a whole 5. Guys, talk to them, bye.
Okay.
So what's the question?
Yeah, I think that was more of a comment, yeah. Do we have a question, perhaps, or?
So, sorry, the comment was that you didn't see any business case for machine translation for your business. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Josef, go ahead.
Yeah. So Josef von Genabitzi in GALA and Dublin City University. I think what your questionnaire and the result shows very, very strongly is that there's no like one size fits all. And that holds true for many aspects in life, but also very, very strongly for machine translation. So I have 2 questions. Like, if you did this sort of like a query again with your constituency, would you change the questions? Would you try to differentiate between size of the company, success in implementation of machine translation, different ways of implementing machine translation? Do you do it in-house? Do you support it in-house? Do you have access to dedicated web service? There's a couple of companies, EU projects that allow people to submit translation memories to web interface and automatically train MT systems, etc. How would you try to sort of like account for that and cover that in your data?
Yeah, I mean, I hope I didn't mean to imply that we did a thorough investigative survey of the landscape of MT. We of course would ask much more want to ask, and our 3 panelists here say they wished we had additional data behind all of that. Certainly, that's true. But I think one of the interesting things that you're pointing out and that we've seen here and we see in the survey is in fact this the one size fits all doesn't fit. And I guess the question I would ask the panel and the audience is, well, but why not? What is it that's preventing us from making this more coherent and creating something that is more sort of uniform, I don't know, standardized? What is it that's preventing that? Language? You'll have to be a little more specific than just language.
Let me try to answer that question. I actually already answered it. It's the last mile of the whole plethora of details that actually is preventing from actual implementation. Because it's one thing to say that, oh, this is workable, and another thing completely is to make it work. And I would make a comment on the comment that we have been always skeptics, actually, of machine translation, because from purely scientific point of view, the problem of machine translation is the equivalent of the problem to artificial intelligence. And as soon as we create a perfect MT translation engine, we're done with artificial intelligence. So I'm very skeptical about that. But I see in my company every day the business cases for machine translation. It's just that this last mile, from our point of view, is not crossed yet, because we are doing large projects into various languages, and what people are doing, I mean, again, I'm very far from belief that machine translation will go to replace the translator in really the human cognitive work. But what our people are doing, for example, the very highly qualified project managers and language specialists, what they are doing, in fact, is technical work. They are actually in our production using their whole lot of years of expertise in process, language, technology to get the huge data set that is to be translated reduced to the amount which is actually needs to be translated. The other stuff, what they do, they reduce the number of translatable words. And that is a very interesting thing to do, and we actually even sometimes not very open of telling this to the clients. They're saying, because they're reducing word count basically on the number of rules that allow you actually to automate the process. And 10 years ago, that job was relatively simple. You just had to eliminate repetitive segments and do repetitions. But over the years, with translation memory and other tools, this area has reduced itself. But still, right now, they're still doing very successfully, as humans, the job of reducing the word count to actual translatable volume, because we are handing off to our suppliers much less than the clients give us. Because we are using basically a machine translation job with our heads, but technology is not able yet to do that, even though that this is possible. So the practical point of view is that from practical point of view, the machine translation technology must be able to really efficiently reduce the word count to translatable volumes through all those technical stuff. But the last mile problems are actually very big. I mean, the provider that brought the high fiber optical channel to your house, and you're struggling with the last mile doing this, that's where we are now. So the answer to this is the last mile problems. There are a whole lot of them, technical stuff.
Okay, Kim, did you want to say something? Yeah.
First, I just wanted to address Josef's question. This is the second survey that we've done. The first one we did together with the Qt Launchpad. And these are questions that essentially we discovered were missing from the first survey. So it's sort of a living process that we're going through here, and we'll certainly do another one and hopefully get a lot more data that we can use. And I think part of the reason why we can't standardize this is, like I said, it's language. I mean, for every rule, there's an exception. Actually, for every rule, there's probably 10 exceptions. And in order for developers and researchers to be able to apply any sort of rules, you need to be working with the people who actually write them or write the language, and make them aware of the fact that every time they use an exception, it makes the output, it just, you know, it turns the output into something that is less usable. So this is a living, we live language, and it changes all the time. And you can look at anything on the internet and the web, and it's all different from anything that we wrote 20 years ago. So that's probably the reason.
I would second that, especially again, the other problem other than last mile, that we're trying to convince the machine translation developers that they really need to work with the translation language specialists to improve the engine. That is really hard job, because they think, oh, we have linguists, you don't know anything about our stuff, and we're saying, listen, you're not going to get anywhere without us, and that's really
that's part of the disconnect, right? The research versus the practical application. But Pedro, you had your hand up already a while, so go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would like to stress two probably simple things. The first thing is that the right question is not if machine translation is useful or not, but for what kind of things is useful.
Exactly.
That's the point. I mean, we comprobated that for certain tasks, for example, the example of e-commerce, short text, no syntax complexity, is rather a matter of controlling brands or controlling a certain lexicon, is very useful. And the second thing is that in the industrial application of machine translation, we cannot pretend to resolve the machine translation of a given language pair. We use the concept of textual universe. What we try to solve is a certain amount of text that belongs to a client, for example, a portal. And this is our textual universe. So we work in that universe to resolve the productivity and quality of machine translation in that universe.
But Pedro, can I just say, hasn't this been the argument of the MT community for decades, that MT is very useful? All you have to do is shrink down the universe to a small enough place, and then it becomes really, really useful. But we don't live in that universe on the company services side. We live in a universe that's really big and expanding. So I guess, I don't know, I'm throwing that out there as an argument.
Yeah, but every client, for the industrial point of view, is a case, and you have to resolve this for that client.
Each one, right. So maybe we have a mini galaxies in our universe. Actually, Arl had his hand up, Jürgen, if it's okay, and then we'll go to you.
Okay, I'll be brief. Arl Lamel with DFKI. With your question, Hans, about why we can't make this more cohesive, I think that we actually have the same problem with human translation. You look at the churn with people finding an LSP and 6 months later they've dropped it and they found another one. What makes it acute for language technology is that we see the answer as an engineering answer rather than as a familiar human relations sort of answer. Because if something isn't working, I can call you up and say, hey Hans, I'm having a trouble here. Can you adjust this? And it's relatively easy to adjust. But if I'm having a problem with MT, then I have to bring in the engineers and the guys with PhDs to fix it. But the problem's the same either way. It's just the solution is a bit different, and we have to, I think, be clear how to articulate those solutions.
Yeah, I think we I think we should stop talking about quality. I think we should talk.
Somebody needs to tweet that.
we should start talking about solutions, communication solutions, because when we talk about quality of machine translation systems, there's a huge risk to lose this game. But if we talk about for what kind of jobs and for what kind of content we use machine translation for our clients as an LSP, then we have a much better chance. And it is a good idea. It should be, of course, part of a bigger content strategy for a company to decide which content gets into translation and which content needs which quality level. And not all content needs high quality level. A lot of content is just fine as it would probably come out from the machine translation system, maybe even from Google Translate, just to understand what's the meaning of the content. So let's talk about solutions and not about quality, because we will lose this game.
It's a losing proposition. Jürgen?
Yeah, I'm Jürgen Danielsen from Eule Lokalisierung in northern Germany. 2 points are missing here in the whole discussion, in my view. One is, going back to your remark, use the free systems. First of all, those are not free. You give out your own content to these guys in order to pay for the use. So there's a huge confidentiality problem. I mean, if I'm developing any kind of new stuff, I'm not sending that out to the world. Why should I send out that to the world if I want to have it translated? So I need control over the process. And that came up in the survey, that people said, I don't have control over the process. I cannot influence the systems enough. And that is a good thing to discuss in this environment, because it's all about cooperation between the different parties. So what we would need in the MT using world is a cooperation between the different parties in a controlled environment. So it's not going out to somebody else that I don't know. It's going out to a group of people that I can trust and that can help me with certain issues, like Serge mentioned before. I need some specialists, but I also need specialists on the LSP side. I need project managers. I need a whole group of people who can help me. But the crucial element is that the feedback from the post editors, as was mentioned in the survey, is really going back to the MT folks.
Go ahead.
What I found,
2 more minutes.
I found 3, actually coming back to what Jürgen just said, 3 things very interesting in the survey as well. First of all, the question of cost. 65% said that they enjoyed not having to pay anything. 65% said that it was easy to use, and 80% said that the quality was terrible. And so the ease of use question is, anyone who's actually implemented an MT system for real and wants good quality knows that it's not easy to use. You can't just plug it into, like you do Google, plug it into your CAD system and then it works. Now they do that, but it's free, as Jürgen said, not really. And this is a big issue that we have. The other interesting thing about the survey was that 2/3 of all of the respondents had a revenue of less than $9 million a year, which means that it's small companies doing this. So if we want these small companies to have access to proper MT, we need to be helping them do it and not just asking the bigger companies to participate in research, but getting some of the smaller companies like ours, or Tilda's already doing it, to actually participate in this in order to get buy-in from our entire industry for good machine translation. And if we do that, then we can continue to improve the communication, expectation management, the quality side of things, and that I think is the most important thing, because when you look at the numbers and you put these numbers together, these small companies are using machine translation systems that we don't, necessarily think should be used for our clients.
I think we're at the end of our time, but what I'd like to do is get 20 seconds from each of you. What is, if you could name one thing that LSPs and or MT tools providers could do that would significantly move the marker on some of these issues that we've talked about? What is the one thing that you would say, if you could speak directly to that community, what would you say? Whoever would like to go first. 20 seconds. 20 seconds, Serge.
Please participate in collaborative research, innovation and standards program to advance the cooperation between LSPs and MT providers to advance this last mile problem.
That was a sales pitch. No, but maybe we'll come back to you. But Stefan.
I think the most important point is to communicate to the LSP community what you can offer and how to implement it and what the business case is, and then help them to sell it to their end clients.
Okay, Kim?
And mine would be similar to Stefan's, but expectation management, what both sides can expect of each other in their relationship.
Low expectation. Okay, sorry we don't have more time. We could probably talk all day. Thank you very much.
Annehmen und Geschehen.